Welcome back, everybody, to episode number 4 of Notes from School, the podcast. I'm your host, James B. Partridge, or Mr. Partridge, as we are now in the Assembly Hall. Thank you so much for joining me again, or if this is the first time you have listened to this podcast, welcome. Every week, every Wednesday, I am releasing an episode talking about all the songs that we sang at school and how that those songs stayed with us through our lives. And that is especially relevant in today's episode because I'm going to be talking about the most popular wedding hymns in the UK. Okay, based on my own research and based on what it says on the internet. So, let's get straight into it. First of all, I just want to do a little bit of a catch-up, as I do every week, tell you what I've been up to this week. And also thank you to everyone that listened to the episode last week about Scottish folk songs. So last week's episode was a bit more of a historical assembly, a bit more of an educational travel back in time to the Jacobite rebellion of the 1700s, and we talked about songs like My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean, the Sky Boat song, Loch Lomond, Charlie's My Darling, and I had a great comment from someone in the United States on YouTube who was watching the episode on there. And by the way, if you prefer a visual medium of podcast, then I am filming all of these episodes so you can watch them back on YouTube, and then I usually clip up a couple of little bits and put them on Instagram and things. And by the way, I did a little bit of a statistical deep dive into my analytics. That sounds very fancy, but I just went on my podcast website and it says who follows me from where around the world, and I've got 18 listeners in the United States. Oh, yes. And this person that commented on my YouTube is one of them. And his name is RoboDragon9506. I assume that is your real name, Robo, or Robbo. Probably makes more sense. Robbo commented saying, my Bonnie is so well known over here that I know some parody lyrics alongside the original. And I'm going to sing you the parody lyrics because they're great. So they went like this. Last night as I lay on my pillow, last night as I lay on my bed, I stuck my feet out of the window. By morning the neighbours were dead. Classic stuff. Bring back, oh bring back my neighbours to me. Anyway, it kind of carries on. So thank you for your contribution, Robert. He said that it was his first episode. I'm assuming your gender there. I apologize. It says this was my first episode. So Robo, okay, thank you for your comment. I appreciate it. And I really enjoyed those alternate lyrics. I feel like it's a true mark of a good school song if it has some alternate lyrics that you've made up. And those are good. I feel like those are very wholesome versions. I feel like most school songs have some slightly less school appropriate lyrics. He's got the whole world in his pants, for example. Lord of the Farts. You know, the list goes on. The list goes on. But maybe I'll have to make a whole episode about different lyrics to existing assembly songs and what we actually sang in assembly. Anyway. So thank you very much for those alternate lyrics, Robbo. Now, sometimes in the episodes, I do a correction section if I've got something drastically wrong. This week, I was very surprised because, especially as it was a more historical episode last week, I thought there were going to be lots of corrections, but I didn't get sent a single one. So there we go. I either got everything right or you weren't listening hard enough. Okay, so in my podcast last week, I answered some questions. And one of the questions I answered had a really great response from people because I answered a question which was about when should my daughter start learning the piano. She's age 3 at the moment. And I clipped this up and put it on Instagram. I had a lot of really interesting comments. Someone commented on Facebook actually saying that they said, we can't recommend enough going to live music events for young children and families. And it just so happens that I'm doing one of their events, and they're called Concertinis. They're based in Sheffield, I believe. Anyway, the gig I'm doing is for them in Sheffield, and it's the first show that I would have done, which is specifically for families and young children up to the age of 7, so 7 and under, basically. And I'm doing 2 shows on the 30th of March, on a Sunday morning, 10:30. I am doing 2 shows in Newcastle the night before, so I might be a bit tired, but it'll be a lot of fun. And so they said, to spark the children's interest, get them involved, give parents fun events in a pub/pizza and a pub/pizza afterwards, I assume, all aim to set people up for a lifelong love of music. That's great. If you can bribe parents with pub and pizza, that is all for the better. And I had a really interesting couple of other comments as well about this whole topic about what age should you start learning the piano. And the consensus was pretty much that it doesn't really make a huge amount of difference if they start at 3 or if they start at 5 or 6. Someone said, my parents started me on piano lessons at 3.5. I don't think it gave me any advantage. What I would say that it is more to focus on self-confidence. Alas, this was not a thing back in the 70s and 80s, so while I went through all my exams up to grade 7, I could never play for an audience. Now, that's a really interesting conversation topic, and maybe I'll do a little chat about that in another episode, about self-confidence in music and how, actually, whilst learning through grades and pieces and exams can be really useful, in some ways, it can actually really shatter your self-confidence. I nearly said shelf-confidence there. Being able to perform as a musician is so important, and you can only do that through experience. And I do say to my pupils, if you want to take an exam with an examiner, then that's great, but it's not the be-all and end-all to do it in front of an examiner. Sometimes, I remember growing up, how scary it was to do piano lessons. And I heard all these sorts of horror stories. Like, there was some story, I don't know if it was apocryphal or not, about someone that went into their piano exam and was playing the piano and finished the exam. And then at the end of the exam, they looked up and the examiner was asleep. And then they ran out of the room and they said, oh, my examiner's fallen asleep. And then a bit of time went past and the parents were told to take the child home. And it turned out that the examiner had died. Oh my God. The examiner had died during the exam. That must have caused so much trauma for this poor student that was sat there playing their little bit of Mozart or whatever. Yeah, I can't even imagine. You would have had to work through that in a few therapy sessions, I've got to say. Now, just one more comment to do with this topic before I move on. And it was from someone who says, I've been teaching piano for nearly 30 years. I've taught kids who started as young as 3 and 4. I've had the occasional exception, but as a general rule, I'd say there's no advantage to starting formal learning that early. But what they would say is get to know their letters, which is very important. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You don't need to learn any more than that if you're a musician. And just explore with games and listening and exposure. Anyway, so there's lots of great comments all about when you should start learning the piano or any instrument, I suppose. Now, so moving on to just a very quick catch-up, what I've been up to this week. It has been a week of show announcements for me. I've had a few shows go on sale, and I have a very exciting London residency at Soho Theatre at the end of April. So I'm doing, I think it's Monday the 28th. I'm hoping that's correct. I'll correct it in the correction section next week if it's not. And I'm doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, not the Thursday, which is May the 1st, because Soho Theatre are opening a new venue in Walthamstow. But I'm doing the Friday and the Saturday as well. Now, Friday's nearly sold out already. It's been on sale less than a week. So get in there if you can. If you want to come and see it, it's going to be great. It's going to be an hour-long show. It's going to be a late show. It's going to be 9:15. So it's going to be fun. And I appreciate it's going to be a school night for a lot of you for the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But if you want to come on the Friday and Saturday, get in there quick because they are going quickly. And it's going to be so much fun. I can't wait. I'm going to find it genuinely really hard to keep the show down to 1 hour because I'm so used to doing a 2-hour show now. But for the Edinburgh Fringe, did an hour show. So it does work and it's a lot of fun. I've got a couple of other festival-y announcements as well. So the day I'm recording this is Tuesday the 11th. And I just got announced to be performing at Camp Festival at the end of July, beginning of August. And I'm doing 2 performances that day. I'm doing a main stage. Unbelievably, I'm going to be on the main stage, the castle stage at Camp Festival, on the same stage as the Sugar Babes, who are headlining, which is very exciting. And I just, by the way, this week had a bit of a rediscovery of the Sugar Babes and how great they were, because I'm reading this fantastic book at the moment called Reach for the Stars, very fittingly, as I cover that song in my show. It's called Reach for the Stars by Michael Cragg, I think the author is called, and it's a really great look into pop music between 1996 2006, and it has a whole chapter, a very extensive look into the Sugar Babes and all of their various lineups. It is really, really good. So there we go. I'm playing at Camp Festival and also Margate Dreamland with the Bootleg Beatles. So a bit of a random lineup, but I think it's going to be great. I think it's a Sunday sing-along type vibe. Talking of Sunday sing-alongs, this Sunday just gone, I had quite a long day of driving because I did a round-trip drive from London to Skegness, all the way up in Lincolnshire. It is Lincolnshire, I think. So I had a bit of a 7-hour round trip, listened to lots of music and some podcasts and the radio, and I performed at Butlins, Skegness, Sunday sing-alongs, which was great. It was, again, just an hour show, but I had people there dressed up as lollipop ladies. We had someone dressed up as a dinosaur. Someone was dressed up as a shark. We had lots of school uniforms going on, which was fantastic. And it's just a great vibe. And so that weekend, I think they had 911. Who else was there? They had Chesney Hawkes, I think, Artful Dodger and So Solo Crew. It was a proper 90s night. And I'm doing lots of the Butlins weekenders this year. Actually, I'm doing Bognor Regis and Minehead as well. Minehead, Butlins, where I used to go growing up. Now, so that was a little bit of a catch-up. Oh, and also on Saturday, I went to see Jason Manford at the Palladium, which was very fun, and he finished his set by playing the Assembly Bangers remix that he made through the speakers, and I think I was the only person singing along, but there we go. Now, okay, let's get into... That was a bit of a catch-up. I'm just going to have a little coffee break. If you need a sip of coffee after that very exciting catch-up, then go for it. Here we go. All right, coffee acquired. So, there was a question in last week's question and answer section that inspired this episode. And the question was, which is the best tune for Love Divine, All Love's Excelling? Now, that was asked by Helen Bramley. And Helen, if you are listening to this podcast, you have inspired an entire episode of Notes from School, the 4th episode of Notes from School. And it just made me think of all the amazing hymns and songs that you had in your wedding, and how a lot of these songs we would have sung at school. And I mentioned in the first episode about One More Step Along the World I Go, how actually what's so great about that song in particular is that it kind of gives you a bit of a journey through your life, and it's a song that can resonate through lots of different times of your life that are important. And I did a little poll online, and I said, what song did you have at your wedding? And I had so many responses. So honestly, I didn't think I'd have that many, but I had nearly 500 replies to this question. And even I put out just another one about 20 hours ago. I know it's 20 hours ago because on my Instagram it says how long ago you posted it, and I'm still, just before I press record, I was still getting responses about what songs and what hymns you had at your wedding. And so I've put down as many as I can, and I've made a leaderboard. So in this episode, I'm going to give you the top 20 wedding hymns as chosen by you. And then I will let you know towards the end of the episode which 3 wedding hymns I had at my wedding. And maybe you can take a guess at this point. What wedding hymns do you think I had? And it wasn't any of the Come and Praise classics, I don't think. It wasn't any of the ones that you would think that I might have, like, I don't know, Shine Jesus Shine, for example. So yeah, maybe write down what you think are going to be my 3 wedding hymns and see if it tallies up. But such a great question. And normally in the episodes, I'm going to be doing a Q&A section about all sorts of stuff. So if you would like to ask me any questions in any of the episodes going forwards, then feel free to send me an email at notesfromschoolpodcast@gmail.com, or send me a message on Instagram, and I will hopefully answer your question in a future podcast. And by the way, there is a circular saw drilling a circular saw drilling out, like cutting outside of my flat. So I'm really hoping that doesn't get picked up in the background. Now, talking of the email address, I asked this question about wedding hymns, and I got sent through a couple of emails. So I'm going to go through those now. So first of all, shout out to Hannah Nurse. And she said, "Hi, James, I love your podcast and have also been to your show in Brighton, which was fabulous. Thank you very much for coming." That show in Brighton, if you went to the Christmas show, was really rowdy, but really fun. It was absolutely rammed in the Comedia basement. And that was also kind of a fun one because I had a few YouTuber influencers there, like Zoe Sugg and Joe Sugg and Alfie Days, and they were there and filmed it and put it on their podcast. And anyway, so that was a great show. So Hannah says, "I was born in 1977 and enjoyed music throughout my school years. There were a couple of songs I remember from middle school, which I don't think you've played. I may be wrong. The first one is Little Boxes and the second is Inchworm. Both are found on YouTube. Let me know what you think." Oh, okay. So Hannah's email's not about the weddings, but it is about a couple of school songs. And one of them is actually a song that I reference in my live show if you come to see it. And it goes, "Little boxes on the hillside, little boxes made of ticky-tacky, little boxes on the hillside, and they all look just the same." It is a song with a theme that all children want to sing about, all about middle-class conformity in suburbia. That classic theme. Now, so that was Little Boxes by a songwriter called, I think her name is Malvina Reynolds, and she also wrote Magic Penny. "Love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away." And lots of other songs that we actually sang at school, which were included in the Alleluia Songbook. And the second one she mentioned is Inchworm. Now that's a bit of a deep cut, Inchworm. Inchworm, Inchworm. I think it's from a musical. I think it's Hans Christian Andersen musical, I believe. And that song, Inchworm, is, I don't know why I know this fact, but randomly, it is one of Paul McCartney's favourite songs, aside from God Only Knows. I don't know why I know that fact. But Inchworm, yeah, that's kind of an interesting song because it is, it has two different melodies. So it has, okay, 2 and 2 are 4, 4 and 4 are 8. And then it goes into the chorus and it goes, "Inchworm, inchworm, measuring the marigolds." And then it's got another line that goes, 2 and 2 are 4, 4 and 4 are 8. And that second melody gets sung on top of Inchworm, Inchworm. It's actually really hard to do it at the same time. But there we go. That was Inchworm. Quite a niche one for you to sing at school assembly. Quite a hard one to sing. But there we go. So that was for Hannah, but that was not about the wedding hymns. This next email is about the wedding hymns. So this is from Lorna from Barks and Bubbles. And she says, "Hi, James. I'm really enjoying the new podcast and happily singing along whilst I groom dogs at my salon. When I got married, the hymn I wanted was If I Had a Hammer." By the way, the best song ever written about DIY. But this didn't happen. Instead, I had Make Me a Channel of Your Peace. Oh, great choice. Which I remember singing in assembly. We asked the vicar at church to sing The Lord is My Shepherd while we signed the register. They sang the Vicar of Dibley version, and the whole congregation started laughing. Anyway, thanks for the podcast and the live shows. I've been to see you 4 times now and hoping to catch you again soon. Well, first of all, Lorna, I feel like you need a stamp card, and when you get to 5 shows, I feel like you need to get the next one free. Okay, so I'll see what I can do with that one. Thank you so much for coming to the shows. And if you've not seen one of my shows, by the way, that is a little recommendation that you can see it 4 times and still not get bored. There we go. So If I Had a Hammer, great song. If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning, I'd hammer in the evening, all over this land. I'd hammer out danger, I'd hammer out a warning, I'd hammer out the love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land. If I had a hammer. There we go. That was a Pete Seeger song from the 1950s as an old folk tune. I still haven't seen the new Bob Dylan movie, but it features Pete Seeger apparently. So there we go, Lorna. that was to make up for the lack of If I Had a Hammer in your wedding, but Make Me a Chant of Your Piece is absolutely fantastic as well. I will talk about that later on in the episode, so watch this space. Also, I won't talk about The Lord Is My Shepherd because it didn't quite make the cut. Spoiler alert, it just didn't make the cut for the top 20. But that is a good tune. That is a good tune, The Lord Is My Shepherd. And the Vicar of Dibley version is great. Howard Goodall, classic tune. Is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. Great song. Oh, that's really beautiful. Now I just want to binge watch the Vicar of Dibley. That was a great show. So there we go. Lord is my shepherd. But I assume that was the wrong one. I assume that wasn't the one that you wanted, but that is a good version. Okay, I've got one more email sent through to the Notes from School podcast. And if you do send me an email, I will read it out. I mean, depending on what it says, but I probably will read it out. Okay, final email. So, hi, loving the podcast. I came to see you in Leeds for the Christmas assembly, brackets, dragged my husband along. He is now a convert. Fantastic. I really love that. And one of my favorite things in my shows, by the way, is seeing plus ones that have clearly been dragged along to the show, getting involved by the end of the show. So one of my first shows was actually in Preston at the Penwortham Art Centre. And there are a fey people there because it was one of the first shows. They're a bit unsure as to what it was going to be. I remember one guy sat with his arms crossed and right at the front, and he looked like he was not enjoying himself whatsoever, first of all. And he didn't look like the sort of person that necessarily would have been behaving in school assembly. And but by the end, he was waving his arms, singing along. It was absolutely fantastic, and I really love that. Just, people coming along to the show and getting involved in the whole communal singing aspect and the joy that it brings you just to be in a room singing with people. Anyway, I'm going off topic. Carrying on with the email. For our wedding, we didn't know what hymns to pick, and so they had a song called Give Thanks. We had to have it. Give it a listen. I think Erasure may have had it used as a base for one of their hits. It isn't a traditional wedding hymn, but the look on some of the guests' faces of a certain age was worth it. Now, I went away and I looked up this wedding hymn, this song, and it's called Give Thanks. And let's see if you recognize it. Let's see if you recognize the tune. And it's actually not Erasure, it's another band. And this is the tune. It goes, give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks to the Holy One. Give thanks because he's given. Whatever, it carries on. Now, do you recognize the tune? Go west, life is peaceful there. Go west in the open air. Go west. It is Go West by the Village People, as covered by the Pet Shop Boys, famously in the 80s. So I don't think Erasure did it, but the Pet Shop Boys definitely did it. And I love how I went on this song, Give Thanks, and I think it's really big in the States. So if you're one of my 18 listeners in the States, then let me know if it's big for where you are. And what made me laugh was the fact that literally nobody commented saying, this is Go West. And also, if you're from the UK and you're into football, then you'll know it as 1-0 to the Arsenal, 1-0 to the Arsenal, or whatever team you support. So there we go. I really am envisaging this being sung in your wedding, and then everyone was like, what is going on? And all the blokes being like, hang on, I sing this in the football stadiums. So I feel like I should do a whole episode about songs that have been reinterpreted as football chants, because there are actually a lot of them, including Lord of the Dance and Sing Hosanna. A lot of these songs would have been taken from your childhood, and much like wedding hymns, they will be sung in other parts of your life. So they will be chanted at the tops of your voices with lyrics that were not suitable for the assembly hall in the football stadiums. Okay, so with all that chat about weddings and hymns, it is now time to get on to the official top 20. This is like the radio show. It's like Radio 1, but radio notes from school. This is your top 20... I was going to say school assembly hymns. This is your top 20 wedding hymns as voted for by you. But before we get into it, let's just take another quick coffee break. Okay, welcome back. It is time for the top 20 wedding hymns in the UK as voted for by you on social media. And I wonder whether you can guess what they're going to be. So just before we get into the top 20, I'm going to give you a few notable shout outs from 25 to 21. So, coming in at number 25, we have Here I Am, Lord, a great tune. Number 24, Calon Lan. Shout out to all the Welsh crew out there. Number 23, one of the best hymns, I think, of all time, Praise My Soul, the King of Heaven. Absolute banger. It did not make it into the top 20 of the best wedding hymns in the UK. Number 22, In Christ Alone. Let me know if you had that one at your wedding. Number 21, we had, as mentioned earlier in the podcast episode, The Lord is My Shepherd. I don't know whether it's the Vicar of Dibley version or the more traditional hymn. But now, we're getting into the top 20. I feel like I need a little top 20 jingle for this. But coming in at number 20, we have a tune, hot off the press, by Patrick Appleford, called Living Lord, Lord Jesus Christ. And if you don't recognise the title, it is a guilty pleasure of a hymn, I think. I'm not going to play you every part of all of these hymns. I'm just going to give you about one or two lines of each tune, and I'm going to kind of try and mash them all up together. So I'm going to give you the top 20 wedding hymns in the UK medley mashup, starting with this one, and it goes, Lord Jesus Christ, you have come to us, you are one with us, Mary's Son. Okay, then number 20, we had Bind us together, Lord, bind us together with words that cannot be with chords that cannot be broken. Something like that. Number 18, we had Okay, be still, for the presence of the Lord is shining all around. I think actually the lyrics are, be still, for the presence of the Lord, the Holy One is here. And then number 20, we have one of the biggest school assembly bangers of all time. Give me oil in my lamp, keep me burning. Give me oil in my lamp, I pray. Now number 16, we get a little bit more traditional. Tell out my soul the greatness of the Lord. Okay, now, coming in at number 15, we have Dear Lord and Father of Mankind. Now, arguably a bit of a controversial one because of the lyrics. Dear Lord and Father of Mankind, forgive our foolish ways. Maybe you've been foolish already and you want to have a new chapter in your life. But it's a great tune, and of course it goes like this. Dear Lord and Father of mankind, forgive our foolish ways. Beautiful tune. Number 14, we have Amazing Grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. Okay, and then, so I feel like Amazing Grace quite often gets voted as number one hymn in the UK, but for the weddings, it was number 14. Number 13, we have Oh Jesus, I Have Promised. And this is one that was quite popular on Facebook when I put the shout out on there. Oh Jesus, I have promised to serve thee to the end. I didn't actually sing this one. I don't think I know this one very well. Be thou forever near me, my master and my friend. That is one that, honestly, I don't really know particularly well, but it got voted in. Number 13. Number 12, we have Morning has broken like the first morning. And there is actually a wedding version of the lyrics that is Come to a wedding. That was number 12. Number 11, it is How Great Thou Art. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Saviour God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Now, that is actually quite a tricky one for the congregation to sing. And, okay, we're moving now into the top 10. So here are the top 10 wedding hymns in the UK as voted for by you on social media. Coming in at number 10, we have Make me a channel of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring you love. Fantastic song. Number 9, we have All Things Bright and Beautiful. All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small. Number 8, we have One more step along the world I go. One more step along the world I go. And if you want to hear more about that hymn, go back to episode 1 where I've got a whole podcast about it. So, number 7, we have... this is very interesting. At number 7, we have I vow to thee, my country, all earthly things above. Now, we've got a couple of tunes in here which you might hear sung in a rugby stadium, for example. I vow to thee, my country, all earthly things above, entire and whole and perfect, the service of my love. With a tune famously by Gustav Holst, who taught at St. Paul's Girls' School. I taught at St. Paul's Boys' School for a while. That was from the Jupiter bit of the planets. Anyway, I vow to thee, my country. Fantastic rugby tune. We've got another rugby tune coming up later. But then I gave a little shout out to Cal on Land, which came in at number 24. But number 6 in the top 10 is Guide Me, O Thou Great Redeemer, or Jehovah, whichever version you sing. And Guide Me, O Thou Great Redeemer is a great tune. Again, a rugby tune, but possibly sung by the Welsh rather than the English. Guide me, O thou great Jehovah, pilgrim through a barren land. I am weak, and thou art mighty. Hold me with thy powerful hand. Bread of heaven, etc. I'm getting into it. I've done a few shows in Wales. I've done about 5 or 6 shows in Swansea, Cardiff, Newport, and up in Mold, up in the north of Wales. And I can't wait to go back to Wales at some point. I'm going to Cardiff this Christmas. Cumronda, I believe it's pronounced, is the alternate title. And I love how the lyrics are by William Williams, the most Welsh name you can possibly have, with an edit by Peter Williams, which I assume is his son or something. Okay, so number 6. Now we're into the top 5. Coming in at number 5, we have the best Easter hymn. And it goes like this. I danced in the morning when the world was begun, and I danced in the moon and the stars and the sun. They came down from heaven and I danced on the earth. At Bethlehem I had my birth. Dance then wherever you may be. I am the Lord of the dance, said he, and I'll lead you all wherever you may be, and I'll lead you all in the dance, said he. Lord of the Dance, number 5. Very, very popular. I had more than 20 votes for that one. I had 21 votes. By the way, it doesn't sound like many, but there are so many other hymns that were voted for. There were literally, I just told you the top 25, but I had nearly 100 other hymns that were voted for that maybe got voted for once or twice. So out of all the 500 people that voted, 21 of you had had Lord of the Dance at your wedding. And coming in at number 4 is Jerusalem. So I feel like there's a bit of a trend here with a few hymns that may be sung in a stadium. And I mentioned earlier about songs being sung in football stadiums. These would be sung at rugby stadiums. I might actually do a whole episode about Jerusalem because I think it'll be really interesting to get into it. So let me know if there's any other tunes you want me to get into from school in any future episodes. But Jerusalem, of course, an absolute classic. I feel like also a lot of people message me to say, my husband really wanted Jerusalem, or my husband really wanted I Vow to Thee, My Country, because they're big rugby fans. So number 4, we have Jerusalem, and I'm just going to give you a little blast of that. And did those feet in ancient times walk up on England's mountains green? I'll leave it there for now. I will get into Jerusalem in another episode because I think it'd be a really interesting tune to talk about. So coming in at number 3, we have what I think is my number 1 school assembly banger. It is Shine, Jesus, Shine. So I'll just sing you a little bit of this one. Let's go. Shine, Jesus, shine. Fill this land with the the Father's glory blaze, Spirit blaze, Lord, and let there be light. There we go, Shine Jesus Shine, number 3. By the way, I've got a bit of a sore throat today, so apologies for any slightly husky singing, some dulcet tones. Now, number 3, Shine Jesus Shine. Number 2, we have, okay, this might be controversial because what I've done for number 2 is I've actually put 2 together to form the number 2. So we had Lord of all hopefulness and Be Thou my vision. They are the same tune, but with different lyrics. Lord of all hopefulness got 13 votes, so that would have been about the. It would have been number 10. Be Thou my vision had 11 votes, and that would have been number 11. Okay, so but together they had 24 votes. 24 people had Lord of all hopefulness, Be Thou my vision, and so I'm going to put them together because I feel like it's the same tune. So coming in at number 2 is that tune, and it's based on an old Irish melody, folk tune, and I'll just give you a little blast of that now. So this is Lord of all hopefulness, Lord of all joy, whose trust ever childlike no cares could destroy. Be there at our waking, and give us, we pray, your bliss in our hearts, Lord, at the break of the day. Obviously, it wouldn't be sung that fast, but this is already quite a long podcast, so we now get into number 1. So we've gone through the whole list of the top 20, and apologies if I did not sing your wedding hymn. It was not in the top 25, so I did not mention it. But there are lots and lots of other fantastic tunes that were in there. Before we get to number 1, I'm going to tell you what 3 songs I had at my wedding. So I wonder if you guessed the correct ones. And it just so happens that one of them is the one that I just sang, Lord of all hopefulness. And what I actually did was I wanted Lord of all hopefulness, and my wife wanted Be Thou my vision. And what we did was we actually mixed the verses. So we did one verse of Lord of all hopefulness, then we did 2 of Be Thou my vision, then we finished off with the final verse of Lord of all hopefulness, which is really nice. The second hymn was How Great Thou Art, that we had at our wedding. And it was really interesting because there were quite a lot of singers at the wedding. So if you were a singer, you knew the tune. If you weren't a singer, you didn't know the tune. And it was actually quite hard. It's quite a hard song. It goes quite low. And the final hymn we had was one of my favourite ones from growing up. It is Be Still for the Presence of the Lord. We had that one. Be still for the presence of the Lord, the Holy One is here. Great tune. So those are my 3 wedding hymns. And thank you so much to every single one of you that told me what you had. And I also, as well as all the wedding hymn recommendations, I also had lots of really lovely messages telling me about your wedding memories, about what year you got married and all the other things that you did. Some people had bagpipers, some people had harpists, all sorts of things. And it just goes to show how incredibly important music is as part of the celebration of the wedding. Now, we've come up to number 1. And before we get to number 1, I'm just going to say this is what linked in to the previous question and answer where I was asked, which is the best tune for Love Divine or Love's Excelling? Number 1, we have Love Divine. Of course, it was by far voted for as the number 1 wedding hymn in the UK. Love Divine or Love's Excelling, number 1. And it actually has a few different tunes. It's quite a popular hymn. I think it was performed at Charles and Diana's wedding, 1981. They also had I Vow to Thee, My Country, interestingly. But Love Divine, it's been sung at so many weddings. A lot of people have it. It's an absolute classic tune. But which tune do you know? Okay, so there are 4 quite popular tunes. The first one I'm going to play for you is by John Stainer. This was the original Love Divine tune from Hymns Ancient and Modern, the hymn book, and it goes, Love divine, oh love's excelling, joy of heaven to earth come down, fix in us thy humble dwelling, oh thy faithful mercies crown. Okay, let me know if you know that one. There is another tune which is actually more popular in the United States apparently. So Robo, from earlier in the episode, you'll probably know this one. He goes, Love divine, all love's excelling, joy of heaven to earth come down, I do actually know that one. That is a good tune. Fix in us thy humble dwelling, all thy faithful mercies crown. Okay, so that is actually one I don't recognise it as much. Now, the next one is a Welsh tune called Hyfrydol, I believe it's pronounced. Apologies, any Welsh speakers, if I got that completely wrong. Hyfrydol. And it goes like this. Love divine, who loves excelling. Da, 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 da. Yeah, that's a really nice one. Bit of a waltz time. Got 3 beats in a bar in that one. Now, this next one I'm going to play is, by the way, just so you know, lots of hymn tunes have specific titles which are based on something really random, like it might be the place where it was written. This hymn tune is called Blaenwern, I believe it's pronounced. I might be wrong. Let me know if I am. By William Rowlands, another classic Welsh composer. So I feel like we're really getting into the Welsh composers and the Welsh tunes in this episode because it is the land of song and they can sing a good tune. This is Love Divine, All Love's Excelling, and this is the final tune of the podcast episode. There's been a lot of singing in this episode. It's been a bit of a bumper crop of an episode of tunes. Now, I hope you've been singing along to a lot of these tunes. We've got one final song to go, and then we'll wrap it up, and I'll send you back to class. This is Love Divine, All Love's Excelling. Love divine, all love's excelling, joy of heaven to earth come down. Fix in us thy humble dwelling, all thy faithful mercies crown. Jesu, thou art all compassion, pure unbounded love thou art. Visit us with thy salvation, enter every trembling heart. Hey, there we go. Love's Divine. Hope that brought back some good memories for all of you that had that at your wedding. What a fantastic tune, and I hope you sang along. Honestly, I've got a massive smile on my face just from singing that. There is something amazing about singing those tunes that really, gives you joy. Now, that was my top 20, or your top 20, most popular wedding hymns in the UK. Thank you so much for listening again. Feel free to hit follow or subscribe, whether you're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever you listen to. Feel free to leave a review if you enjoyed it, and you can send me any questions at notesfromschoolpodcast@gmail.com or on Instagram or TikTok, etc. Thank you so much for joining me once more in the Assembly Hall for a Notes from School podcast, and I can't wait to see you again next week. In the meantime, keep smiling, keep singing, and I'll see you again next Wednesday. Class dismissed.